A human was chosen by the alien princess. Chaos followed immediately. Stationed on the remote orbital platform Orion 7, which hovered above the neutral planet Lyrathia, he spent his days repairing reactors, recalibrating sensors, and ensuring that the massive satellite's engines ran smoothly. Life in orbit was predictable, and Elias liked it that way. He liked the routine, the hum of machinery, the simple satisfaction of fixing something that had gone wrong. The morning began like any other. Elias walked down the narrow corridors of the station, his boots echoing against the metal floor, the air recycled but clean enough to feel breathable. He checked the readings on the reactor console. All normal. He adjusted a valve, tightened a loose panel, and wiped the sweat from his brow. Routine, peaceful, predictable. Then the alarms went off. The red lights flashed, casting long shadows across the corridor walls. Elias froze, heart thumping. Alarms on Orion 7 were rare, and when they sounded, it was always bad news. He sprinted toward the central control hub, expecting a malfunction or perhaps an asteroid collision warning. But what he saw on the screen made him stumble backward. A ship, massive and elegant, was entering the station's orbital zone. It was unlike anything Elias had ever seen. Sleek and glowing with a faint bluish light, the vessel pulsed as if it were alive. Its surface shimmered with strange patterns that seemed to move across the hull, and the size was almost unimaginable. Sensors estimated that it was over half the length of Orion 7 itself. What is that? Elias muttered, staring at the image. The communications console crackled to life. A calm, musical voice spoke in a language he didn't recognize, yet somehow understood. His heart skipped a beat as the words translated automatically through the station's universal translator. "I have come for him." Elias blinked. He wasn't sure if he had heard correctly. "For me," the words repeated, more insistent. "The human chosen by the Lyrathian princess. Prepare him for departure." Elias' mind raced. Humans were not known for being selected by alien royalty. In fact, humans were usually ignored in the galactic councils, seen as curious but inconsequential. And yet here he was, apparently singled out. "Station, prepare for evacuation," Elias stammered. His hands flew over the console, trying to alert the small crew stationed with him. Alarms blared again, and the crew rushed in, confused and panicked. "There's a ship. They're selecting me. I don't." The station commander, a tall woman with short silver hair named Tara, frowned. "Elias, calm down. Are you sure it's targeting you?" The communicator crackled again, translating the alien's voice. "Do not resist. The chosen one must come." Tara's brow furrowed, but she nodded, realizing resistance was futile. "Elias, I think they mean you. This is unprecedented, but you don't have a choice." Elias' stomach sank. His mind was spinning. He had never wanted adventure. He had never wanted to be famous, or important, or even known outside of Orion 7. He just wanted to fix machines and live quietly. And now, a princess from a distant alien empire was claiming him. By the time the shuttle from the alien ship docked, Elias was shaking, torn between fear and awe. He stepped into the vessel, his eyes widening at the sight before him. The interior was breathtaking. The walls glowed softly with energy patterns that shifted like living art. Floors were transparent in places, revealing layers of machinery and energy conduits below. The air was perfumed with a scent Elias could not name, warm and clean, making him feel more awake than he had ever felt on Orion 7. And then he saw her. Princess Selara appeared before him. She was taller than most humans, her skin shimmering faintly with a golden hue, and her eyes a deep violet that seemed to see everything at once. Her hair flowed like liquid silver, moving even though there was no wind. She smiled, but it was not a playful smile. It was the kind of smile that could calm storms or start them. "Elias Kane," she said, her voice melodic and soothing. "Do not be afraid." You have been chosen because you are capable, because you are human, and because the galaxy needs your kind in ways we cannot manage alone." Elias opened his mouth to speak, but words failed him. He could only nod. Solara gestured, and a holographic map appeared in the air, showing her planet below, surrounded by floating cities, enormous towers, and glowing bridges connecting continents. "Lyrathia is in turmoil," she explained. "My people are divided. Civil war threatens our civilization, and a human mind, one unbound by our traditions, may tip the balance." Elias swallowed hard. Civil war, aliens, a princess, chosen. He felt the weight of responsibility press down on him. He had never commanded anyone in his life, never led a mission, never been in a real fight. And now he was being asked to change the fate of an entire planet. The ship moved faster than anything Elias had ever experienced. Stars stretched into streaks of light as they jumped through subspace, arriving in orbit above Lyrathia in a matter of hours, a journey that would have taken months with conventional ships. Elias had barely had time to process the fact that he was leaving Orion 7 forever. When they entered the atmosphere, he gasped. Lyrathia was more beautiful than he could have imagined. Vast floating cities hovered above emerald forests, rivers shimmered with bioluminescent light, and creatures flew in formations that seemed impossible. The capital city, perched on the edge of a massive floating plateau, gleamed like a jewel under the planet's twin suns. As the ship landed, Solara turned to Elias. "Remember, Elias, you are not here as a visitor. You are here to act, to think, to create solutions. Your human perspective is a rare gift, and it is needed now more than ever. Do you understand?" Elias nodded, though doubt gnawed at him. He had no idea what he was capable of, or if humans could even make a difference in this alien world. But one thing was clear: there was no turning back. The palace gates opened, and the ship glided through, passing towers taller than anything on Earth. Aliens of every shape and size paused to look at the human who had been chosen. Some stared with curiosity, others with suspicion, and a few with thinly veiled hostility. Elias could feel the weight of their eyes, judging, questioning, waiting to see if he was truly worthy. Inside, the palace was even more extraordinary. Energy flowed along the walls like living rivers. Rooms shifted in size and shape according to need. Robots and creatures moved together in harmony, attending to the needs of the court. Elias realized that he was a small part of a much larger machine, and that machine was alive. Solara led him to a private chamber where he would stay for the first few days. "Rest," she said. "Tomorrow you will meet the council and begin your training. It will be difficult. You may feel out of place. But remember, human ingenuity is exactly what we lack here. Your mind is your weapon, Elias. Never forget that." That night, Elias lay in a bed that seemed to float above the floor. The soft hum of the palace lulled him into a strange sleep, but his mind raced with questions. Could he really make a difference? Was he truly capable? What did it mean to be chosen, to be the first human in centuries to be given this kind of responsibility? He thought of Orion 7, the quiet station where he had lived all his life. He thought of the hum of machinery, the smell of oil and metal, the predictable safety of it all. And he realized that his life had changed forever. Humanity had been given a chance. A single human had been chosen, and whether he succeeded or failed, the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. As sleep finally claimed him, Elias dreamt of stars stretching infinitely, of strange creatures looking to him for answers, and of a voice, Solara's voice, calling him to action. Chaos had followed immediately, just as the title promised, but in that chaos, Elias sensed the faint glimmer of opportunity. Perhaps humanity, in the form of one ordinary man, could rise to the challenge. Morning came, and with it, the sound of distant alarms and whispers. The court was already in motion, tensions simmering, and Elias knew he had no time to hesitate. The human had been chosen, and the galaxy was watching. Elias woke to the soft light of Lyrathia's twin suns filtering through the translucent walls of his chamber. The hum of the palace was alive with movement, servants gliding silently across corridors, strange creatures tending to floating gardens, and the distant echo of voices discussing matters Elias could not yet understand. He rubbed his eyes, trying to push aside the lingering fatigue of space travel and anticipation. Today would be his first meeting with the Royal Council, and he had no idea what to expect. He dressed in the simple uniform Selara had provided, a sleek, form-fitting suit that adjusted to his body temperature and glowed faintly with protective energy fields. Though human in shape, the suit shimmered with alien technology, its lines pulsing softly in rhythm with his heartbeat. Elias marveled at it. Even the smallest things on Lyrathia seemed alive, integrated with energy in ways humans had never imagined. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Elias," Selara's voice called, "are you ready?" He turned to see her standing just outside the chamber, her violet eyes glowing softly. She wore a ceremonial robe of deep blue and gold, its flowing patterns shifting subtly, as if alive. Elias had seen nobility before, but nothing like this. There was power in her presence, not only in authority but in the quiet confidence of someone who knew the fate of a planet rested on their shoulders. I think so," he admitted. His voice sounded small even to him. "Good," Selara said, stepping aside. "Come." The council awaits. They moved through corridors that seemed to shift slightly as they passed, adjusting in width and height to accommodate their journey. Elias noticed that no two rooms were alike. Some were filled with light, others with moving holograms, and still others seemed to float in midair, the floor barely visible beneath their feet. The palace was a living entity, and Elias felt both awe and intimidation. The council chamber was massive, with high ceilings that curved like the inside of a giant shell. Holographic displays floated above the central table, showing battle maps, energy grids, and planetary scans. Around the table sat representatives from every major faction of the empire, generals with metallic armor grafted to their bodies, scholars with translucent wings fluttering softly, and advisors with eyes that glowed like distant stars. All of them turned to look at Elias, the human who had been chosen. Selara gestured toward him. "Elias Kane, he is the human I spoke of. He will work alongside us to find solutions to the problems facing our world." A low murmur ran through the council. Some members leaned forward, curious. Others exchanged skeptical glances, whispering among themselves. Elias felt every eye on him, measuring, questioning, doubting. Humans were known for creativity but also for recklessness. He had no idea if he could live up to their expectations. One of the generals, a tall Lyrathian with 4 arms and armor that gleamed like obsidian, spoke first. His voice was deep and commanding. "Princess, a human cannot possibly understand the complexities of our military strategies. We have centuries of tradition. What can he offer that we do not already possess?" Elia's stomach twisted. He had expected skepticism, but not open hostility. Selara's eyes narrowed slightly, though her voice remained calm. "Perhaps he sees things differently," she said. "Sometimes, a fresh perspective is exactly what is needed." Elias opened his mouth to speak but faltered. Then he remembered something he had learned as an engineer. Sometimes the simplest observation could solve the most complex problem. Gathering his courage, he said, I may not understand all your traditions, but I notice patterns. I notice weaknesses. And I notice things that might not be obvious if you only look at what has always been done." The chamber fell silent. The general raised an eyebrow. Another advisor leaned forward, intrigued. Elias felt a spark of hope. Maybe they would listen. Selara nodded encouragingly. "Elias, you will be briefed on our current conflict. Pay attention and speak when you see solutions." For the next several hours, Elias absorbed everything he could. Holographic maps displayed regions under rebel control, cities at risk, and energy grids that powered the floating capitals. He listened to discussions about troop movements, supply lines, and sabotage. At first, the terms felt alien, almost impossible to follow. But slowly, patterns emerged. Humans had a way of connecting disparate points, seeing relationships others might overlook. And Elias began to notice things. Paths the rebels had left open, energy fields that could be rerouted, weak points in the defenses that no Lyrathian had considered dangerous. Finally, he spoke. If you adjust the energy shields along the northern plateau and combine it with mobile defense drones in a staggered formation, you could protect the city without overextending your troops. Also, some of your supply lines can be rerouted using smaller transport ships. It's faster and less detectable than traditional methods. A murmur ran through the council. Some members frowned, skeptical. Others nodded slowly, clearly impressed. The general with 4 arms leaned back, stroking his chin. This is unconventional. It might work. But it is risky, Elias shrugged. All strategies have risks, but sometimes the risk of doing nothing is greater. Selara's smile returned, warm and approving. See, the human mind brings possibilities we might not have imagined. This is why he was chosen. After the council meeting, Elias was led on a tour of the palace. He saw the floating gardens, alive with plants that reacted to touch, changing color and shape. He watched robots and creatures working together seamlessly, repairing sections of the palace without human guidance. He marveled at the laboratories where Lyrathians were experimenting with energy manipulation that defied human physics. But amidst the beauty, Elias sensed tension. He noticed small, pointed glances among council members, whispers that stopped when he approached, and subtle gestures that conveyed disapproval. Not everyone welcomed a human interfering in their traditions. Some saw him as a threat, a potential scapegoat, or even a tool to be used for political advantage. In the evening, Selara found him in the observatory, staring out at the glowing cities of Lyrathia below. "It is overwhelming, isn't it?" she said softly. Elias nodded. "It's beautiful, but I can feel it too, the tension. Not everyone here wants me to succeed." Selara's expression darkened slightly. "That is true. Some factions may try to undermine you, even harm you. But remember, you are here because of your unique perspective. Trust yourself. The galaxy may doubt humans, but you have something they do not: adaptability, creativity, and the courage to act without centuries of expectation holding you back." Elias considered her words. He had never thought of humans as particularly brave. He had thought of them as stubborn, curious, and occasionally reckless. But now he realized that those qualities, combined with ingenuity, could be strengths in a world that prized tradition above all. Over the next few days, Elias began his training and orientation. He learned to operate alien machinery, studied energy manipulation techniques, and practiced combat simulations. Lyrathian technology was far beyond anything humans had created, but he quickly adapted, applying logic and creativity to master systems that even some young Lyrathians struggled with. During a simulated combat exercise, Elias devised a strategy no one expected. By combining human timing with alien energy shields, he outmaneuvered the simulation's defenses completely. The trainers watched in astonishment. "He thinks differently," one murmured. "He is unpredictable, and that is powerful." Word of Elias' talent spread quickly through the palace. Allies began to emerge, some generals curious about his methods, some scholars eager to learn from a fresh mind. Others remained wary, observing his every move, waiting for a mistake. Despite the growing respect, danger was never far. On his first walk through the palace gardens without Selara, Elias noticed a subtle ambush, a small group of guards from a rival faction observing him too closely, their intent clear. He did not panic. Humans were good at thinking on their feet. Using a simple distraction and exploiting the palace's shifting architecture, he slipped past them unnoticed. Later, he reported the incident to Selara, who nodded gravely. "You have made your first mistake avoided. Learning quickly will save you." By the end of the week, Elias began to feel more confident. He could navigate court politics, understand alien technology, and even anticipate the subtle moves of those who sought to undermine him. Yet, he knew this was only the beginning. The true test would come when the rebellion escalated, and the human mind would have to act decisively in real-world conflict. That night, he sat alone in the observatory, looking at the glowing cities below, the vast forests, and the skies streaked with energy. He thought of Earth, of Orion 7, of the quiet life he had left behind. And he realized something. He had been chosen not because he was extraordinary in the usual sense, but because he was human. His creativity, curiosity, and ability to act without the weight of centuries of tradition were his greatest assets. As he drifted into sleep, Elias felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. The galaxy had thrown him into chaos immediately, but he was ready to meet it head-on. Humanity, in the form of one human engineer, had arrived on an alien world, and even in the face of skepticism and danger, he could already feel the first sparks of change taking root. The adventure was only beginning, and the chaotic, unpredictable world of Lyrathia awaited. Elias woke to the sound of distant alarms, the soft glow of Lyrathia's twin suns casting streaks of light across the palace walls. Something had changed overnight. He could feel it even before stepping into the corridor, a tension in the air, a subtle vibration beneath the floor, a sense of urgency that was impossible to ignore. Today was different. He dressed quickly in his suit, which hummed softly as it adjusted to his body. Every movement felt purposeful, deliberate. Over the past week, Elias had begun to adapt to life in the Lyrathian palace, but nothing could fully prepare him for what lay ahead. The rebellion that had simmered on the outskirts of the capital was now moving closer, and the council had called an emergency session. Selara met him at the chamber entrance. Her violet eyes, calm yet intense, scanned his face. "Elias, the situation has escalated. The rebels are no longer distant threats. They have begun coordinated strikes against our supply lines and strategic points. Your presence is required. We need human insight more than ever." Elias swallowed, trying to steady the sudden rush of adrenaline. He had faced simulations, court intrigue, and minor skirmishes within the palace. But real conflict was entirely different. The stakes were no longer abstract. The lives of thousands of Lyrathians and perhaps the survival of the planet were at risk. They entered the council chamber together. Holographic maps flickered in the air, showing regions under rebel control highlighted in crimson. Energy grids across the floating cities pulsed with danger markers. Generals and advisors spoke in rapid bursts, discussing troop movements, defensive barriers, and counterattacks. Elias watched, absorbing every detail. One of the generals, the four-armed Lyrathian, turned toward him. "Human, you will provide a plan. The council's proposals are sound but predictable. We need fresh thinking." Elias nodded, already scanning the maps in his mind. He noticed the pattern immediately. The rebels were exploiting narrow energy corridors to bypass defenses. Their strategy relied on predictability. They assumed the Lyrathians would respond as they always had, using traditional formations and energy barriers. But humans did not always follow tradition. Humans adapted. He spoke carefully. "If you reroute the energy shields along the western corridor and deploy mobile units disguised within supply transports, you can cut off the rebels, advance without exposing the city. Additionally, you could use decoy energy signatures to confuse them about our troop movements." The room fell silent. Some council members frowned, skeptical of a human directing strategy. Others leaned forward, intrigued. The general's four eyes studied Elias with a mixture of suspicion and respect. Unorthodox, he said finally. It could work, risky, but it might be enough to gain an advantage. Selara placed a hand on Elia's shoulder. Trust him. His perspective is not bound by our traditions. That is why he was chosen. Within hours, Elias found himself in the field, standing on a platform above a glowing city, overlooking the first target area. He had never commanded troops before. Humans on Earth had always fought in small units or large armies, but nothing compared to this. Alien soldiers, energy fields, floating cities, and technology beyond imagination. Yet he felt a strange confidence. He understood patterns, weaknesses, and opportunities. He issued orders through the Council's communication network. Troops moved precisely as he suggested. Energy barriers shifted according to his calculations, and decoy energy signals pulsed in perfect rhythm. The rebels advanced, confident in their strategy, unaware that they were stepping into a carefully prepared trap. Elias held his breath as the first clash began. The rebels struck with speed and cunning, but the human-led plan anticipated every move. Mobile units flanked them, energy corridors redirected their attacks, and the decoy signals caused confusion. The Lyrathians held their ground, surprising even themselves. From her vantage point, Selara watched Elias in action. She had known humans could be resourceful, but seeing one direct strategy on a scale so massive was astonishing. "He is remarkable," she whispered to an aide. After the skirmish ended, Elias returned to the palace, exhausted but exhilarated. The victory was small but significant. It proved that humans could contribute in ways even the most advanced alien minds could not predict. Yet he knew the true challenge was still ahead. The rebels would adapt, and the real test would come when their full force reached the capital. Over the next several days, Elias trained relentlessly. He studied alien weaponry, learned to operate complex energy systems, and practiced combat simulations that grew increasingly difficult. He developed new strategies, combining human intuition with Lyrathian technology. The more he learned, the more confident he became, and the more others began to see his value. Not everyone welcomed this change. A faction of council members continued to watch him with suspicion, whispering about the danger of relying on a human in matters of life and death. Some generals, proud of their centuries-old traditions, gritted their teeth when Elias suggested new approaches. Yet, even among skeptics, the results were undeniable. Human unpredictability was proving to be a weapon. One evening, while reviewing energy grids in the palace library, Elias noticed a pattern the council had missed. Rebel scouts were using hidden tunnels beneath the floating cities, bypassing surface defenses entirely. If left unchecked, they could strike key positions without warning. He immediately brought the information to Selara. "They're using underground corridors. Traditional defenses won't stop them. We need to block these paths and set up ambushes." Selara's eyes narrowed. "Are you sure?" Elias nodded. "I've traced the energy signatures. It's subtle, but the patterns are consistent. They are counting on us to overlook it. That's human thinking for you. They expect us to follow the rules." Selara smiled faintly, a mixture of admiration and relief. "Very well, prepare the defense. You will lead this operation." The following day, Elias coordinated a mission that combined Lyrathian precision with human ingenuity. Drones moved silently through the tunnels, laying traps and surveillance devices. Mobile units disguised as supply caravans waited in strategic locations. Energy barriers shifted dynamically, anticipating rebel movements. Elias directed every step, communicating with the units in real time. When the rebels entered the tunnels, they walked into the trap. Ambushes struck from unexpected angles, energy grids trapped them in dead ends, and drones disabled critical machinery. The rebels were forced to retreat, suffering significant losses. For the first time, human strategy had turned the tide decisively. Word of Elias' success spread quickly. The council began to see him not as an outsider but as an essential force in their fight. Allies emerged, eager to learn from him, while skeptics grew quieter, unable to deny the results. Despite the victories, Elias felt the strain. The constant pressure, the weight of responsibility, and the knowledge that countless lives depended on his decisions weighed heavily on him. He found brief moments of solitude in the palace observatory, staring at the glowing cities below. He thought of Earth, of Orion 7, and of the simple life he had left behind. But he also realized that he had a purpose here, one that went beyond personal comfort or safety. One night, as he trained with energy weapons, a messenger arrived with a warning. The rebels were preparing a coordinated attack on the capital itself. This would be the true test, far larger and more dangerous than anything Elias had faced. The city's defenses alone would not be enough. Human creativity would be needed on a massive scale. Elias spent the next hours devising a plan. He studied the city's energy grids, troop placements, and the likely paths the rebels would take. He considered every variable, anticipating their moves and devising countermeasures. By dawn, he had created a strategy that combined human intuition with Lyrathian technology, designed to protect the city while striking at the heart of the rebel forces. Solara watched as he explained the plan to the council. She could see the fire in his eyes, the confidence tempered with careful thought. "This is what I spoke of," she said quietly. "The human mind, unbound by our traditions, can change the outcome of war." The council agreed to the plan, though some voices still expressed doubt. Elias did not falter. He had learned to trust his instincts, to act decisively even when others hesitated. The coming battle would not be easy, but he was ready. As the first waves of rebels approached the capital, Elias took his position in the command center. His hands moved over the controls, shifting energy barriers, deploying mobile units, and monitoring every movement in real time. The rebels advanced, confident and well-armed, but every step they took played into Elias' strategy. The clash was intense. Energy pulses lit up the skies, vehicles moved at impossible speeds, and soldiers engaged in combat across floating platforms. Elias remained calm, guiding the defense with precision. He adjusted barriers dynamically, rerouted supplies, and sent decoy signals to confuse the enemy. Every move was calculated, every decision critical. Hours passed. The rebels pushed hard, but Elias' strategy held. Finally, after a decisive maneuver, the rebel forces began to retreat, their plans foiled by a human mind they had underestimated. The city was safe, and the defenders celebrated a hard-won victory. Solara approached Elias, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You have done more than we could have imagined. Humanity's ingenuity has saved this city, and perhaps the entire empire." Elias, exhausted but satisfied, realized something profound. Humans were not just survivors, they were innovators, thinkers, and problem solvers. In the chaos of an alien world, his kind had found a place, and perhaps even a destiny. He looked out over the city, glowing under the twin suns, and felt the weight of what had been achieved. The rebellion was far from over, but humanity had proven its value. One human had faced chaos, adapted, and prevailed. And in doing so, he had shown the Lyrathians that humans were not to be underestimated. For the first time since arriving on Lyrathia, Elias felt a sense of belonging, not just as a visitor or an outsider, but as a vital part of a story much larger than himself. The galaxy had thrown him into chaos, but he had risen to meet it, and humanity had left its mark. The sun rose over the floating cities of Lyrathia, casting a golden glow on towers and bridges that shimmered with energy. Elias Kane stood at the command center, surveying the capital city. Today would be the true test. The rebels had gathered their full strength for an all-out assault. Every tower, every energy bridge, every citizen depended on the defenders' ability to hold the line. Elias felt the weight of responsibility pressing on him, heavier than anything he had ever known. Selara appeared beside him, her violet eyes calm but focused. "The time has come, Elias. The rebels are relentless, but I have faith in your strategy. Remember, you are not alone. The Council and our forces will follow your lead." Elias nodded, taking a deep breath. His human instincts had brought him this far, and now they would be needed more than ever. He quickly reviewed the plans he had devised. Energy shields rerouted to create defensive chokepoints, mobile units disguised as supply caravans ready to strike, and decoy energy signals to confuse the enemy. Every detail had been considered, every possibility accounted for, but war was unpredictable, and Elias knew that he would have to adapt on the fly. The first wave of rebels appeared on the horizon, their ships glinting in the sunlight as they descended toward the city. Energy pulses from their weapons lit up the sky, and the ground shook as they landed troops on the floating platforms. The defenders responded immediately, activating shields and launching countermeasures. But Elias had anticipated this. He sent instructions to mobile units to flank the enemy, while decoy signals drew their attention away from key positions. The battle was chaotic, energy beams cutting through the air, vehicles darting between platforms, and soldiers engaging in combat across the sky bridges. Elias remained calm, issuing commands with precision, predicting the enemy's moves as though he could see the battle before it happened. His human intuition allowed him to notice patterns in the rebels, attacks that no Lyrathian could have anticipated. Hours passed, each moment more intense than the last. The rebels adapted, launching attacks from unexpected angles, but Elias countered each move with creative solutions. He rerouted energy fields in mid-battle, sent decoys into enemy ranks, and coordinated flanking maneuvers that trapped the attackers. The defenders began to gain the upper hand, slowly pushing the rebels back. In the midst of the chaos, a warning flashed on the holographic display. A massive rebel force had broken through the outer defenses and was heading directly for the city's core. Elias' heart raced. This was the moment he had feared. If the rebels reached the central energy hub, the city would fall, and thousands of lives would be lost. Selara's voice broke through the comms. "Elias, what do we do?" he thought quickly. Tradition would dictate a direct counterattack, sending troops to intercept the enemy head-on. But tradition had already failed once. Humans did not always follow tradition, they adapted. A bold idea formed in his mind. "We lure them into the northern corridor," he said. "They think it's an unprotected path, but we can trap them with concentrated energy fields and mobile units waiting on all sides." Selara's eyes widened. "It's risky. Everything worth doing is," Elias replied, "but it's our best chance." Orders were transmitted instantly. Troops moved into position, energy fields shifted, and decoy signals amplified the illusion of vulnerability. The rebels, confident in their perceived advantage, advanced into the trap. Elias held his breath as the enemy entered the corridor. Then, as planned, energy fields surged from the walls, creating barriers that blocked escape. Mobile units struck from the sides, and decoy signals caused confusion among the rebel commanders. Within minutes, the enemy was disoriented and trapped. The tide of battle turned dramatically. Rebels attempted to regroup, but Elias anticipated every maneuver. He issued coordinated strikes, cutting off their retreat and neutralizing key units. The defenders pressed forward, reclaiming lost ground, and the city's energy grids pulsed with renewed strength as the threat diminished. Selara watched from the command center, awe in her eyes. "The human mind, it's unlike anything I have ever seen," she said softly. "He doesn't just react, he predicts, adapts, creates solutions we could never imagine." Elias, exhausted but focused, guided the final movements of the defenders. The remaining rebels were routed, their forces scattered, and the city stood victorious. The chaos that had threatened to destroy Lyrathia had been turned back by the ingenuity and determination of one human. As the battle ended, the council convened to assess the situation. General Krath, the four-armed commander who had once doubted Elias, stepped forward. "I was wrong," he admitted. "Humans are remarkable. This victory would not have been possible without him." Other council members nodded, some with respect, others with reluctant admiration. Elias felt a strange sense of pride. He had not sought recognition, but he had proven that humans were capable of thinking differently, acting decisively, and making a difference in ways that aliens could not always predict. Selara approached Elias after the council meeting. "You have done more than save the city," she said. "You have shown that humans are not just observers in this galaxy. You have changed how we see your kind." Elias smiled faintly, the weight of the past days pressing down on him. "I didn't do it alone," he said. "Your people fought bravely. I just tried to think differently." Selara's eyes softened. "Thinking differently is exactly what we needed. You have given us hope, and not just for the city, but for the entire empire." In the following days, the capital began to recover. Infrastructure damaged during the battle was repaired, energy grids were stabilized, and the citizens began to feel a sense of safety once more. Elias worked alongside engineers, soldiers, and council members, continuing to apply human creativity to solve complex problems. His presence had inspired many, proving that adaptability, innovation, and courage could overcome even the most formidable challenges. Despite the victories, Elias knew the work was not done. The rebels would regroup, and new threats could arise at any time. But he also knew that humans had a place in the galaxy, a role that went beyond survival. Humans could innovate, lead, and inspire in ways that even the most advanced alien civilizations could not fully anticipate. One evening, Elias stood in the palace observatory, looking out at the glowing cities and the vast forests beyond. Selara joined him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. "What will you do now, Elias?" she asked. He thought of Earth, of Orion 7, of the quiet life he had once known. He thought of the palace, the cities, the people who had come to rely on him. And he realized that he had a choice, a chance to continue shaping the future of Lyrathia and, in doing so, humanity's role in the galaxy. I think I want to stay," he said finally. "There is so much to learn, so much to do. Humans can help here. And I want to be part of it." Selara smiled, her eyes shining with approval. "Then stay, Elias Kane. Humanity has earned its place among the stars, and you will help guide the way." The following weeks were filled with rebuilding, training, and planning for the future. Elias became a central figure in the council, advising on strategy, technology, and diplomacy. He worked tirelessly, earning respect from allies and even former skeptics. Humans, once considered minor players in the galactic stage, were now recognized as innovators, problem solvers, and essential contributors. In time, peace settled over the capital. The rebellion had been contained, and Lyrathia began to heal. The twin suns rose and set over the floating cities, casting long shadows that shifted with the day, and Elias walked among the citizens, seeing hope and resilience in their faces. He had come as a single human, unknown and inexperienced, and now he had become a symbol, a bridge between humanity and the alien empire. Selara often visited him in the observatory, discussing new strategies, technological innovations, and the future of the empire. Together, they worked to strengthen alliances, improve defenses, and explore new ways for humans and Lyrathians to collaborate. Elias had found purpose, belonging, and a chance to shape the destiny of a world far beyond his own. And yet, he never forgot the journey that had brought him here. From the quiet life on Orion 7 to being chosen by a princess, facing chaos, and adapting to an alien world, every step had tested him, pushed him to think differently, and revealed the potential of humanity. As night fell over the city, Elias looked out at the stars, imagining the countless worlds beyond Lyrathia. He knew that challenges would come again, that threats would rise, and that the galaxy was vast and unpredictable. But he also knew that humans could rise to meet those challenges, that ingenuity and courage could make a difference, and that even one human could change the course of history. The chaos had arrived with his selection, but Elias had turned it into opportunity. Lyrathia had survived and humanity had proven itself. One human, chosen by an alien princess, had altered the fate of a civilization, and the galaxy would never be the same. As the twin suns set, casting the cities in warm golden light, Elias felt a sense of quiet satisfaction. He had faced chaos, adapted, and triumphed. The future was uncertain, but for the first time he felt ready. Humanity had arrived on Lyrathia and perhaps, through him, the stars themselves. A human was chosen by the alien princess. Chaos followed immediately.